Next up on the Cosmic News Network, First Contact with Joshua Pope.
Good morning, Earthlings. Good. How you doing today? Good. How you doing today? Welcome to First Contact Radio. Welcome to First Contact Radio. To talk about all these things we're talking about is because in life, everything is energy. Every single thing that's out there.
Yo, it's First Contact with Joshua Pope. He's the man on the mic, just in case you didn't know it. Covering news from all around the globe, from the weather and space to UFOs. We'll talk politics and make you open your eyes. Conspiracy theories and government lies. We'll dig it all up and try to find the proof. Cause the times is the man, the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio. We have arrived.
The man, the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio. We have arrived.
The man, the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio.
It's time to the man,
First
the
Contact
truth.
Radio. We have arrived. First Contact Radio.
Good morning, Earthlings. Good morning, Earthlings. How you doing today? Welcome back to First Contact Radio. Glad you could be here today, as always. We've made it to the 3rd of September. Thing is, are we going to make it another 28 more days? Or 27 more days, that is. That is the question. We're going to address that over the course of this show, as we have been doing, because as you know, September 2015 is rip-roaring, filled with all kind of adventure and excitement. All right, so we'll get to that. Let's look at our aspects of our cosmic weather today. Moon sign, Taurus, just like yesterday. Sun sign, Virgo, just like yesterday. So a little quick refresher. Virgo, the Hermit, Earth sign. Taurus, the Hierophant, Earth sign. So we have Earth and Earth. So today is a double Earth day. So the first thing you want to look at is the elements. How do the elements behave? Earth is solid. Unless, of course, there's something major that happens in which the Earth gets rocked. And if that's the case, it's something pretty big to move the Earth. Otherwise, we just say we've got Earth and Earth. So two solid things, two events where we're looking at the physical world. However, we are reminded from the Hierophant that we have to connect Va, the Hebrew letter Va, connect the spirit world with the physical world. That way we have that connection, that flow of information. And the Hermit is reminding us, as Virgo, we need to help ourselves and help each other by being patient, understanding the timing of things, and then shining the light for others to see once we find out which way to go. All right, so those are the aspects, the signs we're dealing with. The aspects we're dealing with, 3 of them have already activated. The first one was at 1:50. It was with Pluto, bringing some deep transformation. 4:19 a.m., Venus got into the mix, bringing some imagination. And this is a lesson that needs to go on with our imagination and Taurus, our physical world, how we're going to apply our imagination to the things that we do, the creativity. And then we just passed an aspect, a square between Mars and Taurus. So Mars wants to push things in the physical. Mars is fire, physical is earth. So fire and earth, they're trying to push it along, and sometimes that earth isn't ready to move. And so therein lies the challenge, how to move the earth without moving the earth. And as we know from the studies of the Krybalion and other things, we don't move the earth by moving the earth. We move the earth by moving the fire, water, the air prior to the earth. And that way, sure, we can physically go take a shovel and we can move the earth. But if we're really talking on a big level, we affect it by going to the fire, the water, and the air. And that way we can affect. Okay. 12:53 p.m. Chiron is going to be in a sextile with the moon. Chiron is the wounded healer. It's that part of ourself that needs to be healing. Every one of us has a part of ourselves that is reaching out to be healed. Everyone. Maybe it needs to be healed a little bit, maybe a lot. Everybody has this. A lot of times we're afraid to look in the mirror and find ways to heal ourselves because we think that it's not right to do. We're not certain how to do it. Somebody else has to tell us. Well, physician, heal thyself. It's an old saying. It means that we are the ones who understand our bodies the best. We are the one who understands what we're about. So when we tune into who and what we're about energetically and we heal ourselves, we find that we're much stronger overall. And part of the healing is admitting that there are aspects of ourselves that need to be healed, henceforth Chiron, the wounded healer. Because then once Chiron is healed, then there can be much more healing can be done. Okay, the grid, so we could just look, remember the clock, the big hand is here, the little hand is the moon. September 2nd, or September 3rd on the Gregorian calibrates to the 19th of Elul. This is the last month on the Jewish calendar, or the last day of the year, not the last month. The last day of the Jewish year is on right here, the 29th of Elul. So we still have another week to go, but we are in the last month before the beginning of the new year. And Rosh Hashanah, 1 Tishri, is starting on the Jewish calendar the new year, so it's an important time. And then shortly after that, we have the Yom Kippur, which is a day of atonement. So some very important days coming up here. And then Sukkot, as you can see down here, the festival or Feast of Tabernacles. This is a time when we understand that Jesus was born, somewhere around this time. So 3 important events coming up, all on the Jewish calendar, and these are the things that we're talking about with the various events in the world because they're all connected. The daily thought is choose life. Comes from Deuteronomy 30:19. We created beings can know only that which is not. We can only imagine or exert effort to make it happen. But imagine a great mind which thoughts emerge and then crystallize as the events of the physical world spontaneously without effort. All events and all things except for all those matters for which this world was originally brought into being. These are hidden thoughts. They are neither emerge nor crystallize, but only unfold through the choice to do good. When we choose life, we redeem God's subconscious, his most hidden desire. Okay, on the Mayan Oracle, remember we're in a series of these galactic activation portal days, so that's one of the things to recognize. We are on the 10th day, 10th position, which is right here, of the wave spell of the seed, which is all about flowering. So today is the planetary tone, Skywalker, so it would be the red planetary Skywalker guided by the dragon. The phrase is I perfect in order to explore, producing wakefulness. I seal the output of space with the planetary tone of manifestation. I am guided by the power of birth. Waning moon, 69% of the way full, moving back down to the new moon. Space weather, solar wind currently at 406.2 kilometers per second. Planetary K index, 2 to 3. Big coronal hole on the top of the sun here. 6th and the 7th of September. We're told that we can get some wind coming to us. M-class flare possibility is at 1%. X-class also at 1. Geomagnetic storm activity looks like it's subsiding from 30 to 25 in the mid latitudes. High latitudes from 40 down to 30. And up in the sky tonight, it says, have you heard of Riddle's trapezium? Arcano 1, they are together in the same telescopic field of view in Serpentis Claudia. Okay. And there you have it. That's our cosmic weather for today. So, again, it's just to plan accordingly, know what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a time of life where the astrology, the planets and the stars are saying that we need to focus on what's going on with this earth, being patient, figuring out how to connect spirit into this world, and that's our challenge. And as we do so, we find things will get smoother and easier and better and better. And UFO News is up next.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, UFO News. Thank you, Dirk Bradshaw, for that fine introduction. All right, our first sighting, August 31st. We have a cloud and something behind the cloud. Great example of a giant UFO caught during sunset, making its white cloud below to hide. At the 45-second mark, small aircraft exits the lower part of the cloud, on the left of the screen. It has plane lights on, but it could also be a small UFO. All right, this crazy-looking cloud appeared in the sky near Phoenix, August 31st, displaying what looked like a glowing fire orange gaseous haze above the cloud, giving the appearance of being on fire. It was atmospheric optics at work, courtesy of the sunset, but it was definitely a Kodak moment. Okay, so what do you think this is? Is this a saucer of some sort? Well, here he tells us at the 45-second mark. Let's look there. Here, jumping ahead to the 43, 44, and right in here he said something pops out. The lower part of the cloud down in this area here. So let's check that again. Okay, we're looking for something from the lower part of the cloud moving out. Okay, it's always better when you can enlarge the screen. But there's the orange cloud sighting. From there, next one is the moon-size UFO seen orbiting Earth's sun. There's the object. These UFOs were caught by Moonhausen 74 of YouTube. With the close-ups he's got, it will be hard for NASA and SOHO employee to dispute the claim. These UFOs are as big as you can see from the photos above. They are sucking in parts of the sun near them. This causes the UFO to appear of a black ring around them. Okay. Interesting. Next, Russian cosmonauts get visited by swarm of UFOs on a spacewalk. Okay, it says, I decided that I wanted to see if I wanted to see UFO, perhaps I should go directly to NASA YouTube channel. I looked for a spacewalk and found this one. In it, I found there are segments of it that contain one or more UFOs. The first appears at the 6-second mark when we see night vision infrared filter watching the astronaut as he makes repairs. We even hear the person saying, I'm at the edge of the EV ladder. Then another person responds, I see it. This may refer to the UFO watching in the distance. Also, there was a swarm of tiny UFOs at the 251 mark and again at the 258 mark. All right, so here we at the video itself is 5 minutes and 10 seconds in which you can watch and capture the UFOs. And remember, you can do this yourself here. You just go to the YouTube channel, the NASA channel, and just watch. And guess what? You will see UFOs. You'll see UFOs. That's what. Really strange sighting over Hollywood, Florida. That's an interesting looking one there. Check out this interesting taken by security guard. Happened in Hollywood, Florida, Wednesday, the 2nd of September. The witness said a solid ball of light had no physical qualities, had no shadow or solid object. Overnight security at a construction site, sitting in the northeast corner of the property with a female security guard. We both look up and see it, immediately record the object moving, take pictures of it. After it was gone, I took pictures and videos of the flight trail. The UFO was white and very bright. It appeared as a solid ball of light showing no shadow of a solid object like a plane or rocket. Okay? Interesting. Whatever that was, very interesting. And one last UFO story for today. The most important UFO footage in modern history is being ignored by the world's media. 3 weeks ago now, since the release of the detailed investigation of arguably the most significant UFO footage of the modern era, yet not a peep about it in the mainstream press. Can you believe that? Could this be part of a pattern? Okay, let's just dispense with the obvious. When it comes to the great taboo, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and pretty much every corporate watchdog in the Fourth Estate are reliable no-shows unless being spoon-fed press release size, pre-chewed, culturally acceptable talking points. But maybe it's unfair to single out the institutions. No mortal is immune to the evolutionary shift that is reprogramming right now, even as you read the universal attention span for minimal capacity. Who among you can hang seriously, be honest with a technical 162-page multidisciplinary analysis of a high, strangest event, even if it was captured by the airborne government surveillance camera? But of course, you'd watch the video. Who wouldn't? That's why one would think somebody somewhere might have broken from the mainstream flock and at least posted the footage just for the bounce in traffic. It's not every day we get a chance to see a taxpayer-financed video of a UFO outperforming our coolest toys. On August 19th, a week or so after the Aguadilla news broke, Forbes magazine announced how the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office had approved back in April Boeing's design of a transformer-like process for converting the drone into small submersible vehicles when it hits the water. Superficially, it sounds a lot like what happened over Aguadilla, Puerto Rico on the evening of 4/23/13. That's when a Customs and Border Protection plane tracked the night-flying UFO with the thermal imaging and recorded about 2 minutes worth of action, hurtling erratically along anywhere from 40 to 120 miles per hour, no transponder, and apparently forcing the 16-minute delay of FedEx flight due to the proximity of a local airport. The gizmo went for a shallow dip in the Caribbean and averaged 82.8 miles per hour underwater, nearly twice the speed of most submarines and torpedoes. Boeing designs and developing the rapid deployment air and water vehicles for the U.S. Navy includes wing stabilizers and propellers while aloft and detachable components in the submersible configuration. But those sleek schematics on paper don't much resemble the vaguely spheroid, boxy-looking, amorphous thingamajig that buzzed commercial resident landscapes in Puerto Rico. And unfortunately for Boeing, the plans it submitted to the USPTO don't call for the unmanned undersea vehicle to split apart as it emerges from the water to become two separate flying vehicles. Okay? Very interesting story. I'm going to leave that to you because you could see there is much more to it. I'm going to jump away for a few moments. This is Confirm or Deny. Stay tuned.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Underground is where they live. In the bases that are secretive. We're not supposed to know where they come from or where they go. And if you ask our leaders today, this is what they will say. I can neither confirm or deny. I can neither confirm or deny. I can neither confirm or deny. What's up with their lives?
All right. I'm going to continue on because I've got a lot I want to show you. Okay. December 21st, 2012 came and went. We experienced a shift that day. It was not a physical shift as Hollywood wanted you to believe. It was a shift on other subtle energetic levels. Those shifts have been playing themselves out. People have changed. People are letting go of things more than they had been in a while. I've talked to lots of people. That way I can confirm that this is true in my reality, because people that I wouldn't have expected to change have made changes in ways that really confirm what I'm saying and what we've been talking about. So this first article here, as you can see, is called End of the World is Postponed. I've read this before. It's by Frank Lake. It was written December 21st, 2012. Mayan scholars have updated their doomsday prophecy. The world will end in 2015, not 2012. Oops, they made a mistake. There's good news for those who were fearing the 2012 Mayan apocalypse. They counted wrong. The world is not going to end in December 2012. Instead, it's going to end September 3rd, 2015. Update your daily planners. A new critique published as a chapter in the new textbook Calendars in Years, Astronomy and Time in the Ancient Medieval World, argues that the accepted conversions of dates from the Mayan to the modern calendar are off. This, coupled with a new book, We Are Going to Die in 2015 by Franz Barnkoff, are rewriting the Mayan Doomsday Plain book that has been popularized in our culture over the last 10 years. The problem was discovered when the researchers realized the Mayan calendar was converted to today's Gregorian calendar using an erroneous calculation called the GMT constant, Greenwich Mean Time, named for the last initials of three early Mayanist researchers. But the GMT constant is completely bogus. The Mayan researchers of the past 20 years put too much stock into it, said Robert Wanamaker. They probably were chewing on too many cocoa leaves. The fact is that the GMT constant is a 2-year and 21 7 days off. We've proven that conclusively here at the Scripps Institute. Apocalypse is now delayed. This is a stunning blow to all the merchants. Okay, so according to this, today is the day. Okay, just another thing to add to the list of September events. Here's an article that very important about the month of September. I've gone through this. It's a lengthy article. I'm just going to brief it and leave it to you. It says the next couple of years are going to change the world. I'm not talking about sea change. I'm talking about biblical apocalypse and second coming change. Many people are waking up. God knows. Satan knows. The government knows. The Illuminati who rule the world know. Do you? An ominous pattern of events are falling into place this coming September, so much so that even the most hardened skeptics should take note. Do you have ears to hear? Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, is the holiest day in the Hebrew calendar. It begins at sunset September 22nd, continues through sunset September 23rd. The book of Daniel says 49 days will follow the issuing of a command to restore Jerusalem until Messiah, the Prince, will make atonement for iniquity. September 23rd, 2015 will mark exactly 49 prophetic years, 360 days since the June 7th, 1967, the day that a command to attack and conquer Jerusalem was given by the Israeli Minister of Defense Moshe Dayan. In 1733, Sir Isaac Newton, a mathematical genius, wrote of the same scenario and timetable in his book Observations upon the prophecies of Daniel and the apocalypse of St. John. He described the prophetic year as a Jewish luni-solar year of 360 days. On September 23rd, that same day, the Day of Atonement, the holy day on the Jewish calendar, President Obama will hold a meeting with Pope Francis at the White House. Back in the 12th century, St. Malachi, an archbishop of Armagh, received the prophecy that there would be only 12 more popes. Pope Francis there would only be 112 more popes. Pope Francis is the 112th pope. In 1971, C. Allen Martin received a vision of 12 houses. Years later, God showed him in a dream the meaning of the houses. They represented 12 remaining presidents. The first house represented Truman, The 12th is Obama. The end of both prophecy and vision was destruction and judgment. On September 24th, Pope Francis will be the first pope to ever address Congress. Why? On May 13th, 2014, French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius, standing alongside Secretary of State John Kerry at the State Department, said 3 times that the world has 500 days to avoid climate chaos. And I know what President Obama and John Kerry himself are committed on this subject, and I'm sure that with them, with a lot of other friends, we shall be able to reach success in this very important matter. 500 days from this date brings us to September 24th. Okay, so as you can see from me scrolling behind me, there's a lot more to the article. So, something is going on in the month of September, and yet there's more. Here's this article. A September surprise, CERNs attempt to change the world this month. In September, Europe's Large Hadron Collider, LHC, will smash together subatomic particles at nearly the speed of light, an unprecedented experiment that has some of the leading voices in the world of science and religion sounding the alarm on the risks involved. CERN is perhaps the most famous for its discovery of the 2012 and the elusive Higgs boson, named after British physicist Peter Higgs, who predicted the existence in 1964 of the so-called God particle, which allows other particles to build up mass as they pass through the Higgs field. Today, however, CERN is more famous, or perhaps infamous, for the upcoming experiment which scientists will play God in an effort to recreate the conditions immediately following the Big Bang event that gave birth to the universe millions of years ago. For those who are in the dark about CERN and the controversial objectives it hopes, here's a quick primer. CERN is the world's largest machine. It straddles the Swiss-French border. The $9 billion CERN Collider complex is buried at a depth of up to 575 feet. The tunnel complex runs along a 17-mile circuit. The scientists involved in the project say the laboratory was built underground because the Earth's crust provides protection against radiation. They also say it was buried out of respect for the natural landscape, which surrounds, slightly ironic considering the massive damage the collider would possibly cause down the road. Massive gravitational pull. The CERN Collider is composed of some 9,600 supermagnets, which are 100,000 times more powerful than the gravitational pull of the Earth. They fire protons around a circular track at mind-boggling speed. The beam rotate up for 10 hours, traveling at a distance of more than 10 billion kilometers, enough to make it to the far reaches of the solar system and back again. Traveling just below the speed of light, a proton in the LHC will make 11,245 circuits every second. Okay, so just a few more incidents taking place this month of September. You know, we need to pay attention. If something of biblical proportion happens this month, I don't think we should be surprised. As a matter of fact, I think we should be prepared mentally for anything like this to happen, simply because there are enough signs. Maybe nothing will happen and we go on with our lives. However, we do have enough signs to show us that there is something going on this month. So we could either say to ourselves, gee, it seems like there's a lot of signs pointing to this month. Maybe I should pay attention. Or we could say, there's a lot of signs. Do you think they really have any coincidence? I don't think so. Those are two different ways we could go. And I think that if we look at all of the different coincidences, we're going to realize that there is something about this month to pay attention to. Maybe it's just an opportunity for each of us to grow spiritually, because we all are going to have to face these challenges together. And if something like this happens, if there is a big event, all of our lives are going to have to be interrupted. And it won't just be mine and yours and a couple people, it'll be everybody's. Because if what is happening is going to be as biblical and as large as, you know, one would imagine something like this would be, then everyone's going to be interrupted. And we're all going to have to move through it because sometimes there's more important things. We get so caught up in our day-to-day lives that we forget about the important things. And yet life is moving on. The earth is evolving. And there seems to be an important evolution at hand for each and every one of us. Okay, so now we're going to continue on with the Krybalion. Quick summary. We've gone over all of these principles, and we are on the last principle. So the first principle was mentalism. We live in a universe, in a world that is all mental, one mind. And the largest aspect of this mind corresponds to the smallest and everything in between by the principle of correspondence. Everything vibrates, everything moves. All of the energy that comprises everything is always in motion, some way or another. And these motions move back and forth between poles like electricity, because it's all charged energy, electrical energy that we're dealing with. And these poles move back and forth in rhythm. And so we have the opportunity to get in sync with the rhythm of life and basically dance with life. Dance to the rhythm of life. Get in sync with it. The principle of cause and effect is a principle that if we understand it, we understand that the things that we cause are going to have effects, and the things that were affected are going to have causes. And we learn through the dancing of life how to move out of the way when the pendulum is swinging where it might hit us, and move the other way when we're going to go with it. So we can become more involved in life in a different way. And last, the principle of gender shows us that everything is male and female. And when we really understand the masculine and feminine aspect of all things, then that really helps us to understand how things are made manifest. Okay, so those are the 7 principles. We've gone over them enough times that you should by now have a good understanding of that. This is the next chapter. This is chapter 14. It's called Mental Gender. It's the second part of the lesson on gender. Students of psychology who have followed the modern trend of thought along the lines of mental phenomena are struck by the persistence of the dual mind idea, which has manifested itself so strongly during the past 10 or 15 years, and which have given rise to a number of plausible theories regarding the nature and the constitution of these two minds. The late Thomson J. Hudson attained great popularity in 1893 by advancing his well-known theory of the objective and subjective minds, which he held existed in every individual. Other writers have attracted almost equal attention by their theories regarding the conscious and the subconscious mind, the active and the passive minds, etc., etc., the voluntary and the involuntary. The theories of the various writers differ from each other, but there remains the underlying principle of the duality of the mind. The student of Hermetic philosophy is tempted to smile when he hears of these many new theories regarding the duality of the mind, each school adhering tenaciously to its own pet theories, and each claim to have discovered the truth. The student turns back the pages of occult history, and away back in the dim beginnings of occult teachings, he finds references to the ancient Hermetic doctrine of the principle of gender on the mental plane, the manifestation of mental gender. And examining further, he finds that the ancient philosophy took cognizance of the phenomena of the dual mind and accounted for it by the theory of mental gender. This is the idea of mental gender may be explained in a few words to students who are familiar with the modern theories just alluded to. The masculine principle of mind corresponds to the so-called objective mind, conscious mind, voluntary mind, active mind, etc. The feminine principle of mind corresponds to the so-called subjective mind, subconscious mind, involuntary, passive, etc. Of course, the Hermetic teachings do not agree with the many modern theories regarding the nature of the two phases of mind, nor does it admit many of the facts claimed for the two respective aspects, some of the said theories and claims being far-fetched and incapable of standing the test of experiment and demonstration. We point to the phases of agreement merely for the purpose of helping the student to assimilate his previously acquired knowledge with the teachings of Hermetic philosophy. Students of Hudson will notice the statement at the beginning of the second chapter of the Law of Psychic Phenomena that The mystic jargon of Hermetic philosophers discloses the same general idea, for example, the duality of the mind. If Dr. Hudson had taken the time and trouble to decipher a little of the mystic jargon of the Hermetic philosophy, he might have received much light upon the subject of the dual mind, then perhaps his most interesting work might not have been written. Let us consider the Hermetic teachings regarding mental gender. The Hermetic teachers impart their instruction regarding this subject by bidding the students examine the report of their consciousness regarding their self. The students are bidden to turn their attention inward upon the self dwelling within each. Each student is led to see that his consciousness gives him first a report of the existence of his self. The report is, I am. This is the first, seems to be the final words from the consciousness, but a little further examination discloses the fact that this I am may be separated or split into two distinct parts or aspects, which while working in unison or in conjunction, nevertheless may be separated in consciousness. While at first there seems to be only an I existing, a more careful and closer examination reveals the fact there exists an I and a me. These mental twins differ in their characteristics and nature, and an examination of their nature and the phenomena arising from the same will throw much light upon the problems of mental influence. Let us begin with a consideration of the me, which is usually mistaken for the I by the student, until he presses the inquiry a little further back into the recesses of consciousness. A man thinks of his self in its aspect of me as being composed of certain feelings, tastes, likes, dislikes, habits, peculiar ties, characteristics, etc., all of which go to make up his personality, or the self known to himself and others. He knows that these emotions and feelings change. They are born and die away, are subject to the principle of rhythm, the principle of polarity, which take him from one extreme of feeling to the other. He also thinks of the me as being certain knowledge gathered together in his mind and thus forming part of himself. This is the me of a man. But we have proceeded too hastily. The me of many men may be said to consist largely of their consciousness of the body and their physical appetites, etc. Their consciousness being largely bound up with the bodily nature, they practically live there. Some men even go so far as to regard their personal apparel as part of their me and actually seem to consider it a part of themselves. A writer was humorously said that men consist of three parts, soul, body, and clothes. The close conscious people would lose their personality if divested of their clothing by savages upon the occasion of a shipwreck. But even many who are not so closely bound up with the idea of personal raiment stick closely to the consciousness of their bodies being their me. They cannot conceive that the self independent of the body. Their mind seems to them to be practically something belonging to their body, in which many cases it is indeed. But as a man rises in the scale of consciousness, he is able to disentangle his me from his idea of body and is able to think of his body as belonging to the mental parts of him. But even then, he is very apt to identify the me entirely with his mental states, feelings, etc., which he feels to exist within him. He is very apt to consider these internal states as identical with himself, instead of being simply things produced by some part of his mentality and existing within him, of him, and in him, but still not himself. He sees that he may change these internal states of feelings by an effort of will, and that he may produce a feeling or state of an exactly opposite nature in the same way, and yet the same me exists. And so after a while he is able to set aside the various mental states, emotions, feelings, habits, qualities, characteristics, and other personal mental belongings. He is able to set them aside in the not me collection of curiosities and encumbrances, as well as valuable possessions. This requires much mental concentration and power of mental analysis on the part of the student, but still the task is possible for the advanced student, and even those not far advanced are able to see in the imagination how the process may be performed. After this laying aside process has been performed, the student will find himself in the conscious possession of a self which may be considered in its I and me dual aspects. The me will be felt to be a something mental, in which thoughts, ideas, emotions, feelings, and other mental states may be produced. It may be considered as the mental womb, as ancients styled it, capable of generating mental offspring. It reports to the consciousness as a me with latent powers of creation and generation of mental progeny of all sorts and kinds. Its powers of creative energy are felt to be enormous, but still it seems to be conscious that it must receive some form of energy from its eye companion, or else from some other eye, ere it is able to bring into being its mental creations. This consciousness brings with it a realization of an enormous capability for mental work and creative ability. But the student who finds that this is not all that he finds within his inner consciousness, he finds there exists a mental something which he is able to will that the me act along certain creative lines, and which is able to stand aside and witness the mental creation. This part of himself he is taught to call his I. He is able to rest in its consciousness at will. He finds there is not a consciousness of an ability to generate and actively create in the sense of the gradual process attendant upon mental operations, but rather a sense and consciousness of an ability to project an energy from the I to the me, a process of willing that the mental creation begin and proceed. He also finds that the I is able to stand aside and witness the operations of the me's mental creation and generation. There is a dual aspect in the mind of every person. The I represents the masculine principle of mental gender. The me represents the female principle. The I represents the aspect of being, the me the aspect of becoming. You will notice that the principle of correspondence operates on this plane just as it does upon the great plane upon which the creation of the universe is performed. The two are similar in kind, although vastly different in degree. As above, so below; as below, so above. These aspects of mind, the masculine and feminine principles, the I and the me, considered in connection with the well-known mental and psychic phenomena, give the master key to these dimly known regions of mental operation and manifestation. The principle of mental gender gives the true understanding the whole field of the phenomena of mental influence, etc. The tendency of the female principle is always in the direction of receiving impressions, while the tendency of the masculine principle is always in the direction of giving out or expressing. The feminine principle has much more varied field of operation than has the masculine. The female principle conducts the work of the generating new thoughts, concepts, ideas, including the work of the imagination. The masculine principle contents itself with the work of the will in its varied phases, and yet without the active aid of the will of the masculine principle, the female principle is apt to rest content with generating mental images which are a result of impressions received from outside, instead of producing original mental creations. Persons who can give continued attention and thought to the subject actively employ both the mental principles, the female in the work of the act of mental generation, and the masculine will in stimulating and energizing the creative portion of the mind. The majority of persons really employ the masculine principle, but little, and are content to live according to the thoughts and ideas instilled from the I of the other minds. But it is not our purpose to dwell upon this phase of the subject, which may be studied from any good textbook upon psychology, with the key that we have given regarding your mental gender. The student of psychic phenomena is aware of the wonderful phenomena classified under the head of telepathy, thought, transference, mental suggestion, influence, hypnotism. Many have sought for an explanation of these varied phases of phenomena under the theories of various dual mind teachers, and in a measure they are right, for there is clearly a manifestation of two different phases of mental activity. But if such student will consider these dual minds in the light of Hermetic teaching regarding vibrations and mental gender, they will see that the long sought for key is at hand. In the phenomena of telepathy is seen how the vibratory energy of the masculine principle is projected towards the feminine principle of another person. In the latter, takes the seed thought and allows it to develop into maturity. In the same way, suggestion and hypnotism operates. The masculine principle of every person giving the suggestions directs a stream of vibratory energy or willpower towards the feminine principle and the other person, and the latter, accepting it, makes his own and acts and thinks accordingly. An idea thus lodged in the mind of another person grows and develops, and in time is regarded as the right mental offspring of the individual, whereas it is in the reality like a cuckoo egg placed in a sparrow's nest, where it destroys the rightful offspring and makes itself at home. The normal method is for the masculine and feminine principle in a person's mind to coordinate and act harmoniously in conjunction with each other. But unfortunately, the masculine principle in the average person is too lazy to act. The the display of willpower is too slight, and the consequence is that such persons are ruled almost entirely by the minds and wills of other persons, whom they allow to do their thinking and willing for them. How few original thoughts or original actions are performed by the average person? Are not the majority of persons mere shadows and echoes of others having the stronger wills or minds than themselves? The trouble is that the average person dwells almost altogether in his me consciousness and does not realize that he has such a thing as an I. He is polarized in his feminine principle of mind, and the masculine principle in which is lodged the will is allowed to remain inactive and not employed. The strong men and women of the world invariably manifest the masculine principle of will, and their strength depends materially upon that fact. Instead of living upon the impressions made upon their minds by others, they dominate their own minds by their will, obtaining the kind of mental images desired, and moreover dominate the minds of others likewise in this manner. Look at the strong people, how they manage to implant their seed thoughts in the minds of the masses of the people, thus causing the latter to think thoughts in accordance with the desires and wills of the strong individuals. This is why the masses of the people are such sheep-like creatures, never originating an idea of their own, nor using their powers of mental activity. The manifestation of mental gender may be noticed all around us in everyday life. The magnetic persons are those who are able to use the masculine principle in a way of impressing their ideas upon others. The actor who makes people weep or cry as he wills is employing this principle, and so is the successful orator, statesman, preacher, writer, or other people who are before the public attention. This peculiar influence exerted by some people over others is due to the manifestation of mental gender along the vibrational lines indicated above. In this principle lies the secret of personal magnetism, personal influence and fascination, etc., as well as the phenomena generally grouped under the name of hypnotism. The student who has familiarized himself with the phenomena generally spoken of as psychic will have discovered the important part played in the said phenomena by the force which science has styled suggestion, by which term is meant the process or method whereby an idea is transferred or impressed upon the mind of another, causing the second mind to act in accordance therewith. A correct understanding of suggestion is necessary in order to intelligently comprehend the varied psychic phenomena which suggestion underlies. But still more is a knowledge of vibration and mental gender necessary for the student of suggestion, for the whole principle of suggestion depends upon the principle of mental gender and vibration. It is customary for writers and teachers of suggestion to explain that it is the objective or voluntary mind which makes the mental impression or suggestion upon the subjective involuntary mind. But they do not describe the process or give us any analogy in nature whereby we may more readily comprehend the idea. But if you will think of this matter in the light of the Hermetic teachings, you will be able to see that the energizing of the female principle by the vibratory energy of the masculine is in accordance with the universal laws of nature, and that the universe affords countless analogies whereby the principle may be understood. In fact, the Hermetic teachings show us that the very creation of the universe follows the same law, and that in all creative manifestations about the planes of spiritual, the mental, and the physical, there is always in operation this principle of gender. This manifestation of the masculine and feminine principles, as above, so below as above, and more than this, when the principle of mental gender is once grasped and understood, the varied phenomena of psychology at once becomes capable of intelligent classification and study, instead of being much in the dark. The principle works out in practice because it is based upon the immutable laws of life. We should not enter into an extended discussion of or the description of the varied phenomena of mental influence or psychic activity. There are many books, many of them quite good, which have been written and published on this subject of late years. The main facts stated in these various books are correct, although the several writers have attempted to explain the phenomena with various pet theories of their own. The student may acquaint himself with these matters, and by using the theory of mental gender, will be able to bring order out of chaos of conflicting ideas and teachings, and may, moreover, readily make himself a master of the subject, if he be so inclined. The purpose of this work is not to give an extended account of psychic phenomena, but rather to give the student a master key whereby he may unlock the many doors leading into the parts of the temple of knowledge which he may wish to explore. We feel that in this consideration the teachings of the Krybalion one may find an explanation which will serve to clear away many perplexing difficulties, a key that will unlock many doors. What is the use of going into detail regarding all of the many features of the psychic phenomena and mental science provided, we place our hands of the student the means whereby he may acquaint himself fully regarding any phase of the subject which may interest him. With the aid of the Krybalion, one may go through any occult library anew, the old light from Egypt illuminating many dark pages and obscure subjects. This is the purpose of this book. We do not come expounding a new philosophy, but rather furnishing the outlines of a great world, old teachings which make clear the teachings of others, which will serve as a great reconciler of differing theories and opposing doctrines. Okay, that was a lot of information. A lot of information right there. So the link is available so you can go back and reread. Basically, it's, as I understand, we have two forces. There are two forces at work: masculine and the feminine. The masculine and the feminine always work together according to the laws of the universe. For the masculine puts out and the feminine receives. And so as we go through life and we understand this process and we understand the workings, then we understand the role that the masculine principle has, the positive charge of that electricity, the conscious mind. We understand it puts something out, and then we understand how to receive with the feminine. We are stuck in society because we're confused. There are sections of society confused about gender, thinking that gender means you have an idea and you change your body to match that idea. But that's not what gender is about. Gender is understanding who and what you're about and adjusting the inside to match accordingly. And so we need to really get clear on what this whole principle of gender is about. Again, I didn't make the rules. If you have an issue, take it up with God. I'm just letting you know what the science is and how it works. Adam and Steve can't create children. Therefore, God didn't put Adam and Steve in the Garden of Eden, because if that was the case, then there would not be any way to repopulate the earth or to populate the earth. Be fruitful and multiply. God didn't put two women together to populate the earth, because two women can have children. You have to follow the universal law. You need the male and the female to procreate and bring life into the world, to be fruitful and multiply. And inside each one of us is the male and the female. And all we have to do is bring them together inside of ourselves. And now we're able to move forward life in balance, because we've balanced out the aspects of ourselves. We're not allowing one aspect to take over. Balance, my friends, finding out this energy within ourselves and using it effectively. It's what it's about. Okay? And if there's going to be people out there who are going to say, oh, this isn't right. Gender is what I identify with. Nothing you can do, and people are going to say that and feel that. Identity is in the mind. Their mind is identifying with something. They have a mental image that they are what they think, despite what they see in the mirror. And whatever reason that's going on, maybe it's a past life bleed through that they're still feeling. I don't know. But whatever the case is, the laws of the universe are pretty basic. Masculine and feminine. That's just how it works. Just how it works. Take it up with God if you have an issue with it. Okay. Warrior of the Light. Page 99. Write down again what I told you. The warrior of the light needs time to himself. He uses that time for rest, contemplation, and to contact the soul of the world. Even in the midst of the battle, he manages to meditate. Occasionally, the warrior sits down, relaxes, and let everything that is happening around him continue to happen. He looks at the world as if he were a spectator. He does not try to add to it or take away from it. He merely surrenders unresistingly to the movement of life. Little by little, everything that seemed complicated begins to become simple, and the warrior is glad. Okay? And that brings us to our meditation for today. So go ahead and close your eyes. Take a deep breath. And exhale. And another deep breath. And exhale again. And another deep breath. And exhale. Now I want you just to contemplate the 7 aspects or principles of the Hermetic philosophy we've gone over. First, we have the principle of mentalism, that all is mind. The second is that all aspects of this mind correspond with every other aspect. In the same way, the drop of the ocean contains within it all of the properties of the ocean. And then the principle of vibration lets us know how everything is moving, continuing to move, vibrating, fast or slow. And the principle of polarity reminds us how all energies move from one pole to the next, from one charge of electricity to the next. And as they move back and forth from pole to pole, there is a rhythm. And as we get in sync with this rhythm, we find we're able to move and dance with life, dance and move to the rhythm of life. And we understand with this rhythm are created causes and effects. Causes which go out and cause effects to happen, and effects which go on to create more causes. And we understand how we can do things to help us and avoid the things that hurt us. And last, the principle of gender, understanding that all things are masculine and feminine, and that the nature of the universe itself, male and female, is constantly sending and receiving. And so as we contemplate these 7 principles of Hermetic philosophy, these principles of life itself, we understand that we have the ability to actively participate in moving our lives forward or backwards. So let us just imagine ourselves moving along the path in a forward direction, changing as we go into a better versions of who we are, because we are accepting and receiving more that is available to us. So let the subconscious mind continue on that journey. And let's bring the conscious mind back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3 coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2 coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1 coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. Take another deep breath. Exhale. And open your eyes. That's it. That is the show for today, my friends. Thank you very much for being here yet again. I will be back again tomorrow. It's the end of the week. And we will continue on from here. So just pay attention to what's going on. Let's see what kind of energy comes from today, being the day when some say was a Mayan calendar shifting day. We'll see what happens, and we will reconvene mañana. Till then, have an awesome day. I love you. Keep loving each other. Peace. I'm out of here.